Occupy is about creating something different than a protest. I'm going to read from the CNN article that Douglas Rushkoff wrote, but I kind of appropriate a lot of things as an artist, so sorry, Douglas, but this is actually a really great article. And it really addresses what's being produced by Occupy. And I want to just read part of this article. So yes, there are a wide array of complaints, demands, and goals from the Wall Street protesters. The collapsing environment, labor standards, housing policy, government corruption, World Bank lending practices, unemployment, increasing wealth disparity, and so on. Different people have been affected by different aspects of the same system, and they believe they are symptoms of the same core problem. Are they ready to articulate exactly what the problem is and how to address it? No, not yet, and that's what's really great about this article. But neither Congress or the president, who, enthralled to the corporate America and Wall Street respectively, have consistently failed to engage in anything resembling a conversation. So here, let's talk about this as resembling a really big conversation. And it's a conversation that's happening in the streets. So Douglas talks about how he went to Wall Street and he said that no one's really being able to address anything in particular, and it's more about a dialoguing that's happening. There's young people teaching one another, among other things, he says, on one, how the economy works, about the disconnection of investment banking from the economy of goods and services, the history of centralized interest-bearing currency, the creation and growth of the derivatives industry, and about the Obama administration deciding to settle rather than investigate and persecute the investment banking industry for housing fraud. Anyone who says he has no idea what these folks are protesting is not being truthful. Whether we agree with them or not, we all know that they're upset about it. And we all know that there are investment bankers working on Wall Street getting richer, while things for the most of us are kind of really getting tougher, and tougher for some, and impossible for others. What upsets banking defenders and politicians alike is the refusal of the movement to state its terms and to set its goals in a traditional language of campaigns. But I'm saying they can't. This is more of a dialogue-producing event. That's because, and this is what Douglas says, unlike a political campaign designed to get someone in office or to get someone out of office, this is not a movement with a traditional narrative arc, which is why I really like it. As the product of a decentralized, networked era culture, it is less about victory and more about sustainability. So now it's about getting all the Occupy movements all over the world and in the States to sustain, and that means by nonviolence, and that means by complying with every state police department's concerns, which is interesting too, because we could almost do a bioptic and find out what's different about Occupy Chicago, different than Occupy New York, different than Occupy Indiana, different than Occupy Seattle. Okay, so it's not about one-pointedness, but inclusion and groping towards consensus. It is not like a book, Douglas says. It is like the internet. Occupy Wall Street is meant more of a way of life that spreads through contagion. So it's creating as many questions as it answers. And it aims to force a reconsideration of the way the nation does its business and offers hope to those of us who previously felt alone. So this is really not only a dialogue-producing event, but it's about a gathering of personal power and collective consciousness as well. So, but unlike a traditional protest which identifies the enemy and fights for a particular solution, Occupy Wall Street just sits there, talking with itself, debating its own worth, recognize its internal inconsistencies, and then continuing on as if this was some sort of new normal, that now there's a a library, and now there's a media center, and there's first aid. So you know what it does, and this is where Douglas is brilliant, on point, or actually there's no points, there's lots of points on the map, is it models a new collectivism. Picking up on the sustainable protest village of movements in Egypt with food, first aid, and a library. Of course, many journalists are pointing out that the kids that are tweeting about this, they're criticizing corporate America, but they're tweeting from their iPhones. Yes, but this protest is different and needs to be handled with more nuance, Douglas says. Because this is not about seeking an ultimatum as much as seeking a balance. And yes, there are things that corporations do really well, and we need to take that in consideration, and things that big corporations don't do really well, and take that in consideration. So some people are just showing up for Occupy because of the people, the excitement, the camaraderie, the sense of purpose, when they might not have purpose. I see a larger consciousness growing here. I mean, you know what this means? Maybe these people really don't have jobs in school and families and other things that they have already in operation to go home to. So this is a very disenfranchised, marginalized groups coming together, and they're occupying this word occupy, which stands for many different things. So the members of Occupy Wall Street may be unwieldy, paradoxical, and inconsistent for those of us living in the real world, Douglas says. But that is precisely why their new approach to protest is even more applicable, sustainable, and actionable than what passes for politics today, what passes for intellectualism today, and what passes for activism today. This is a new movement. They are suggesting that the fiscal operating system on which we are attempting to run an economy is no longer appropriate to the task. They're doing it with nonviolence, and they're doing it by occupying a space. It's almost like creating a space to talk about possibilities. And what we're really looking at is a new collective possibility, a new space for dialogue, and that's what's being created. And if you don't know how you can get involved, one thing that you can do is you can just help maintain the movements and the occupies that are throughout the globe. I know someone that brings donuts every morning to the occupies in her state. I know some people go out on their lunch break. I know some people that just wear a sign saying we are the 99%. I know some people tune in when they get home. Whatever you can do to create a dialogue in your life with the people around you, this is a dialogue-producing event. That's how we will all occupy. The next coming months should be interesting. The next years, as we consider this idea of occupying in order to create a dialogue. And Cornel West said that dialogue is basically the nerve of democracy.